One of the mansions on this list has a nuclear bunker wired directly to a country's atomic arsenal. Another one has an underground escape tunnel that runs beneath a city. And we're not even talking about some top-secret government facilities. These are actually the most heavily guarded mansions across Europe. And we're going inside all 8 of them. Let's go! Number 8. Villa Leopolda, Villefranche-sur-Mer, France. Let's kick things off with Villa Leopolda. And if that name alone doesn't do it for you, maybe the price tag will, because this thing has been valued at anywhere between 370 million euros and 750 million euros, making it one of the most expensive private homes on the face of the earth. It sits on the French Riviera in Villefranche-sur-Mer, 18 acres of Mediterranean perfection, and it has a guest list that reads like a century of world history. Royalty, billionaires, Hollywood legends. Alfred Hitchcock literally filmed To Catch a Thief here, a movie about stealing jewels from a high-security Riviera villa. On location. At an actual high-security Riviera villa. You genuinely cannot make this up. The land itself originally belonged to King Leopold II of Belgium, and the current Neo-Palladian villa was designed by Ogden Codman Jr. back in 1929. During World War I, it functioned as a military hospital, which tells you something about the sheer scale and structural durability of this place. 19 bedrooms, 14 bathrooms, multiple swimming pools including an Olympic-sized one, and 10 acres of immaculate gardens that contain, brace yourself, 15,000 olive and fruit trees. That's not a typo. 15,000. And they require 50 full-time gardeners just to maintain them. The estate essentially employs a small village just to keep the hedges looking good. Now here's where it gets interesting from a security standpoint. Those 15,000 trees aren't just landscaping flecks. They function as a living, breathing botanical barrier, dense enough and expansive enough to make any approach from the perimeter genuinely difficult to navigate undetected. The geography does half the security work. The estate sits elevated, with restricted access, and only reachable through secure gated driveways. During the ownership of Lebanese-Brazilian banker Edmond Safra, the private security detail was composed of former Israeli commando soldiers. Not ex-cops, not private security contractors, commandos. The kind of people who trained in conditions you and I have never come close to. The interior is what you'd expect from a Belle Epoque masterpiece. Hand-carved wood paneling, marble fireplaces, Venetian glass chandeliers. It's basically a museum that someone also happens to sleep in. And its monument historique status in France actually protected its architectural integrity, while still allowing for the layering of modern surveillance systems throughout the property. Now, if you think a commando-guarded Riviera estate is impressive, the next one was literally built to look like a 17th century palace, but functions like something out of a Bond film. Number 7. Chateau Louis XIV, Louveciennes, France. Here's a wild fact. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman paid $301 million for this place. You heard it right? $301 million. For one house. And honestly, once you hear what's inside it, that number starts making a strange kind of sense. The chateau sits on a 57-acre walled estate between Versailles and Marly-le-Roi, and from the outside it looks like a graceful 17th century French palace. All limestone, symmetry, classical fountains, and manicured gardens. There's even a small farmhouse with goats and stables to give it that fairy tale pastoral quality. It was completed in 2011, which means it's younger than most smartphones you've owned. But it was deliberately engineered to look and feel like it belongs to another century entirely. Inside, though, it's completely 21st century vibe. The entire 23-hectare estate is managed via a single customized mobile app. The owner can open shutters, control the climate, and manage the full security grid from a phone. There's a 3,000-bottle wine cellar, a private nightclub, a squash court, and an Olympic-sized indoor pool. Pretty standard billionaire checklist so far, right? Here's where it jumps categories entirely. Built directly into the moat surrounding the estate is an underwater meditation room. Circular, completely silent. The walls are made of acrylic panels, each one weighing 8,550 pounds, giving you a 360-degree view beneath the water's surface while you sit in a fully enclosed, fully secure room. Think about the engineering required to make that a reality. Think about the peace of mind it takes to be the person who sits in there. Now, the moat isn't just aesthetic either. It's a real physical barrier that encircles the entire property. Hidden in plain sight, looking like a tranquil water feature from above, functioning as a serious perimeter obstacle below. 40 surveillance cameras cover the grounds, and the aesthetic of the entire security setup is specifically designed to be invisible, woven into the landscape so the presence of a fortress doesn't interrupt the illusion of paradise. The hand-sculpted oak entrance, the trompe-l'oeil ceilings painted by master artists, the gilded bronze facade clock, an exact replica of the one at Versailles. All of it radiates the message. This belongs to someone untouchable. But while that chateau was built to mimic a palace, our next entry is an actual palace, the largest functioning one on the entire continent. Number 6. Royal Palace of Madrid, Spain. This one is 135,000 square meters and has 3,418 rooms. Let that just sit with you for a second. You could assign every person in a mid-sized town their own room in this building and still have space left over. Built on the site of a 9th century Moorish fortress, the current structure was commissioned by King Philip V after the original Alcazar burned down in 1734. Architects Filippo Juvara and Giambattista Sacchetti gave it a square floor plan with a massive central courtyard, a design that's actually an inherent defensive layout, giving the palace natural depth and resistance to external pressure from any direction. The rusticated stone base of the facade isn't just decorative. Structurally, it's built to absorb and distribute impact in ways that most modern buildings simply aren't designed to do. Now, here's the thing that most people don't know about this palace. What's underneath it? The Bonaparte Tunnel, designed by architect Juan de Villanueva, connects the palace directly to the Casa de Campo Park outside. During the Spanish Civil War, that tunnel served as an ammunition depot, and legend has it that monarchs used it for centuries to move across the city completely unseen, slipping over to the Royal Theatre or the Queen Mother's Pharmacy without ever setting foot on a public street. Whether you're protecting a sovereign from assassination or just avoiding a crowd, a hidden underground corridor is not a bad thing to have. The Spanish Royal Guard, over 400 personnel and 100 horses, maintains the palace and performs the famous monthly changing ceremony. Inside, the treasures are extraordinary. Frescoes by Mengs and Caravaggio, a ceiling in the throne hall painted by Tiepolo, and the world's only complete Stradivarius string quintet. Not one Stradivarius, a quintet. 5 instruments from the greatest luthier in history, all housed under the same roof. A palace with secret tunnels and Stradivarius instruments is hard to top. But the next entry operates on an entirely different plane. It's not just a mansion, it's the most exclusive address on Earth. Number 5. 18 to 19 Kensington Palace Gardens, London. 18 and 19. Kensington Palace Gardens is located on the most expensive residential street in the world, where properties routinely trade for 9 figures, and the neighbors include embassies, royalty, and the kind of private wealth that doesn't show up in Forbes lists. Steel magnate Lakshmi Mittal paid £70 million for this compound back in 2004, and what he built, or rather, what he transformed, is 55,000 square feet of something that operates less like a house and more like a sovereign territory. The construction material alone is a statement. The same white marble used to build the Taj Mahal. That's not a renovation choice. That's a declaration. The security infrastructure here is legitimately military grade. There's a reinforced panic room with its own independent life support systems and communication equipment. Not a room you retreat to during an emergency, but a room from which you can continue operating during one. There's a private underground escape tunnel connecting directly to Hyde Park, meaning you can exit the property without ever appearing on a public street. The garage is underground and accessed via biometric controls, with hydraulic car stacking systems for 20 to 25 vehicles. And 65 cameras cover every inch of the property, monitored around the clock by a professional security team. But here's what makes this entry genuinely different from the others on this list. The street itself is part of the security apparatus. Kensington Palace Gardens is a private gated road. There are armed police checkpoints and crash barriers at both ends. Retractable bollards, controlled by Crown Estate officials, determine who gets in and who doesn't. Even pedestrians who linger too long get challenged by diplomatic protection officers. The tranquility of this tree-lined street is entirely manufactured, maintained by a system of constant, invisible surveillance that most people walking past have no idea exists. Inside the Mittal residence, a ballroom, Turkish baths, and a jeweled basement swimming pool. Concierge teams, personal chefs, full-time security details. All of it running quietly in the background of a life that looks, from the outside, simply like luxury. Next up, we have a mansion on the Monegasque rock, and it protects through something arguably more impressive: sheer technological obsession. Number 4. Prince's Palace of Monaco, perched on what's called The Rock, which is a promontory rising above the Mediterranean. This place started life in 1215 as a Genoese fortress. 800 years later, it's still functioning as a defensive stronghold, just with considerably better interior design. The Compagnie de Carabiniers du Prince, Monaco's elite palace guard of roughly 120 men, provides 24/7 protection for Prince Albert II and his family. Standard enough, until you realize that this unit includes a specialized team of scuba divers for nautical security in Monegasque waters. Monaco is so small and so exposed from the sea that the palace's security perimeter literally extends underwater. That level of 360-degree threat awareness is rare even among national militaries. Now Monaco already holds the record for the highest ratio of police officers per inhabitant anywhere on Earth. The entire 2-square-kilometer territory is essentially one continuous security zone, and the palace sits at the center of a surveillance network of over 520 high-resolution cameras, all integrated into the Dallmeyer video system, covering every entrance to the state, every traffic lane, every approach, with automated license plate recognition running across 30 lanes simultaneously. AI-based analytics flag scene changes in the state apartments if someone gets too close to the priceless frescoes. Thermal imaging via UAVs runs around the clock. Fog, darkness, it doesn't matter. And then there's what's underneath the courtyard, a cistern large enough to hold 15,000 cubic meters of water, originally engineered to sustain 1,000 soldiers through a 20-month siege. A 20-month siege. The medieval architects of this palace were not operating in a headspace of optimism. Monaco plays defense through technology and terrain. But our next entry plays defense through something with considerably higher stakes: a direct line to a nuclear arsenal. Number 3. Élysée Palace, Paris, France. The Élysée Palace, situated at 55 Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, Paris. On the surface, it has 365 rooms, one for every day of the year, wrapped in 18th century French refinement. Gold-edged tableware for 6,500 settings. A wine cellar with 15,000 bottles. A dedicated clockmaker whose sole job is to wind the palace's 320 historic clocks every single day. That is someone's full-time profession. Someone wakes up in the morning, reports to the Élysée Palace, and winds clocks, all of them. But underneath all of that, there's something categorically different. Beneath the basement of the Élysée Palace sits PC Jupiter, Poste de Commandement Jupiter, a hardened underground bunker that functions as the operational control center for France's nuclear deterrent. This is not a symbolic installation. If France enters a major conflict, this is where the decisions get made. Autonomous power generators, chemical and biological air filtration, hardened communication lines running directly to the French military. The building above it can host state banquets with heads of government eating off gold-edged plates, while the infrastructure below it is calibrated for civilizational-level contingencies. The GSPR, the Groupe de Sécurité de la Présidence de la République, is the 90-officer elite unit responsible for the president's personal protection. They're trained in air assault and close-quarters combat. The Republican Guard manages the building's static security and its 1.5-hectare gardens. And within the total staff of 800 to 900 people running this palace, 350 are soldiers. Not administrators. Not domestic staff. Soldiers. The Salle des Fêtes, the grand ceremonial hall used for state banquets and inauguration ceremonies, sits directly above one of the world's most sensitive military command nodes. The contrast between what's happening upstairs and what's wired in below, it might be the most quietly insane architectural irony in Europe. Now, France guards its head of state with nuclear infrastructure. But our number 2 entry guards something arguably more historically significant. The spiritual leader of 1.4 billion people, plus 12 centuries of secrets. Number 2. The Apostolic Palace, Vatican City. 53 miles of shelving. That is how much archival space exists inside the Vatican Apostolic Archives. 53 miles of documents, manuscripts, and records stretching back over 1,200 years. Letters from kings, papal decrees, the records of trials that changed the course of history. All of it sitting inside a sovereign enclave of 44 hectares in the middle of Rome. The Swiss Guard has protected the Pope for over 500 years. And here's the thing people always get wrong about them. The Renaissance uniforms are not the story. The story is that every single one of those 135 guards is a Swiss Catholic male who completed training with the Swiss Armed Forces before being selected. They carry ceremonial halberds, yes. They also carry Glock pistols and Heckler & Koch submachine guns and train in counterterrorism and close protection to a professional military standard. The uniform is the brand. The training is the reality. Beneath the Apostolic Palace, in a facility known simply as the Bunker, the most sensitive Vatican documents are held in a fireproof underground vault accessible only through a secure airlock system. The archive houses 35,000 volumes in its selective catalog and 7 million digitized images stored across 180 terabytes of digital infrastructure, itself cyber-protected at the highest tier. The Passetto di Borgo, an 800-meter elevated escape corridor connecting the palace to Castel San Angelo, has been used in genuine emergencies. When Rome fell under threat, popes moved through that corridor. It is still operational today. And then there's the papal conclave, the process by which a new pope is elected. For its duration, the entire Apostolic Palace becomes an electronic black zone. Signal jammers deployed. Surveillance sweeps conducted. Unauthorized communication becomes essentially impossible. Biometric fingerprint systems and facial recognition control access to restricted zones. For those weeks, this building might be the most informationally secure location on the planet. Think about what it means that the election of a single individual requires that level of lockdown. What that tells you about the stakes involved. The Scala Regia, the grand staircase designed by Bernini that marks the threshold between the public museum spaces and the private papal apartments, is one of the most beautiful pieces of architecture in Europe. It's also, deliberately, a controlled access point. Beauty and security fused into the same structure. Vatican City guards a faith, an archive, and a man. But our number 1 entry guards an institution so foundational and so relentlessly observed that its security operation had to be invented almost from scratch, because nothing quite like it had ever existed before. Number 1. Buckingham Palace, London. Buckingham Palace, the one everyone thinks they know. And the reason it sits at number 1 isn't just scale. It's the fact that this building has to do something no other entry on this list has to do. It has to be simultaneously the private home of the British sovereign, the administrative headquarters of the monarchy, a working royal venue receiving thousands of visitors, and a globally recognized symbol. All while maintaining a security apparatus that could neutralize a serious threat in seconds. That combination of total transparency and total security is genuinely unique. The building itself started as Buckingham House in 1703, evolved through John Nash and Edward Blore's neoclassical redesigns, and received its iconic Portland stone facade from Sir Aston Webb in 1913. 775 rooms, 40 acres of private gardens, the largest private gardens in London, containing a lake, a waterfall, and over 350 species of wildflowers. The gardens are patrolled by officers with sniffer dogs and monitored by AI-integrated CCTV running facial recognition and automatic license plate reading simultaneously. The 40 acres look like a park. They function like a compound. The RASP, the Royalty and Specialist Protection Branch of the Metropolitan Police, operates through 3 tiers. Close protection. Plainclothes officers carrying 9mm Glock 17s, positioned within arm's reach of the monarch and immediate heirs at all times. Residential protection. uniformed SO-14 officers, and the King's Guard managing static perimeter defense at every gatehouse. And the Special Escort Group, motorcycle outriders on Honda VFR 1200S, running what's called the Easy Rider Protocol, where a lead bike maintains constant position ahead of the VIP vehicle, while working bikes leapfrog ahead at every junction to pre-clear traffic. The RASP training program is modeled on SAS methodology. Officers are trained to identify what they call the absence of the norm and presence of the abnormal in crowd environments, meaning they're not just looking for threats, they're reading the pattern of a crowd, noting what doesn't fit, and reacting before anything escalates. That's a different cognitive skill than most security professionals are ever asked to develop. And then there's the airspace. A no-fly zone, signed by the Transport Secretary, restricts all aircraft below 2,000 feet over the palace. In an era of consumer drones, that order carries real weight. The palace runs like a self-contained city. Its own post office, its own doctor's surgery, a private cinema. The master of the household department manages everything from state banquets to the royal art collection. 800 staff members, all operating within a protocol framework that has been refined over more than 3 centuries. What makes Buckingham Palace the #1 entry on this list isn't just the technology, the troops, or the architecture. It's that the security here operates in plain sight. The pageantry, the guards, the gates, the balcony, while an entirely separate layer of lethal, adaptive, intelligence-driven protection runs invisibly underneath all of it. Most fortresses hide. This one performs. And somehow that makes it more formidable than any of the ones that don't. And that's a wrap on 8 of the most heavily guarded mansions in Europe. From the commando-protected Riviera to the nuclear heart of France to the crown jewel of the British monarchy. Which one surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. And if this kind of deep dive is your thing, take a look at Global Status for more such interesting videos.